The Zyrax weren't just another alien species. They were humanity's first encounter with an advanced civilization. They emerged from the cold reaches of space, inhumanly precise, calculating, and ruthless. Humanity's initial awe quickly turned to caution, and then to an uneasy truce after a brief series of skirmishes. With communication sparse and tensions high, both sides agreed to a fragile ceasefire. The terms were straightforward: limited engagement zones, open trade for shared resources, and most critically, the mutual humane treatment of prisoners. Yet, even under this truce, the tension never fully dissipated, lingering like a storm on the horizon. But all of that changed the day a scout ship intercepted a Zyrax transmission. It was supposed to be routine intel gathering, scanning encrypted Zyrax communications for insights into their strategic positions and fleet movements. Instead, what they found was something that sent a wave of cold fury through the ranks. The intercepted signal contained graphic evidence, a recording raw and unfiltered, that showed a captured human unit, bound and defenseless, as they were systematically executed by Zyrax soldiers. The Zyrax showed no hesitation, no mercy, as if this was nothing more than a routine task. The recording didn't stop there. Zyrax commanders gloated over their actions, mocking humanity's supposed weakness and their reliance on feudal concepts like honor and mercy. Within hours, the recording was brought before the Human Coalition Command. Leaders and officials gathered in stunned silence as the footage played, each second stretching into an eternity. Some in the room looked away, unable to bear the cold brutality of it. But others stared, anger hardening their expressions. The image of each fallen soldier, each helpless face, seared itself into their minds. General Anders, a seasoned veteran, clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He whispered what they all felt: betrayal. The silence in the command room broke with a torrent of emotions. Shock, grief, and a mounting rage filled the space as officers and commanders struggled to process the violation of what little trust they had placed in the Zyrax. The Zyrax hadn't just broken the ceasefire. They had torn it apart, disregarding the sanctity of human life. The outrage was palpable, rippling outward from command, spreading like fire through the ranks. As the news trickled down to the front lines, soldiers gathered in mess halls, barracks, and briefing rooms, watching the footage with grim, unyielding faces. Murmurs of disbelief turned to calls for justice. Many had lost friends, comrades who had trusted in humanity's commitment to peace, only to be repaid with execution. The sense of betrayal ran deep, fueling a righteous fury. Some soldiers demanded immediate action, voicing their frustration in no uncertain terms. They weren't just facing an enemy. They were facing murderers who had desecrated the lives of their friends, their brothers and sisters in arms. And they weren't alone. Messages poured in from human colonies and civilians across allied worlds, all echoing a single sentiment: the Zyrax needed to be held accountable. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming emotion, the higher-ups weighed their options carefully. Breaking the ceasefire would mean committing humanity to a war the likes of which it had never faced. Humanity's fleet was formidable, but a full-scale assault would stretch their resources, risking lives and infrastructure on an unprecedented scale. Some argued that retaliation could spiral into a cycle of endless bloodshed, endangering countless lives on both sides. Cooler heads suggested diplomacy, a push for reparations or sanctions. But then, as the room erupted in debate, Admiral Riker, a steadfast and well-respected leader, spoke up, his voice cutting through the clamor. "This isn't just about strategy," he said, his gaze unyielding. "This is about who we are. They broke the terms, slaughtered our people without remorse. If we let this slide, we send a message that human lives are negotiable, that their actions have no consequence. We would betray the trust of every soldier who believes we will stand up for them. And make no mistake, this won't be the last time they test our resolve." Riker's words brought a sobering clarity to the room. The decision was not one to be taken lightly, but it was clear they had reached a point of no return. Humanity had been tested, provoked beyond endurance. There was no turning back. One by one, the leaders looked at each other, and in their eyes was a fierce determination. They knew the risks, but they also knew their duty: to honor the fallen, to defend the living, and to ensure that such an atrocity would never be repeated. With grim resolve, the command gave the order. A formal declaration of war was prepared, stating humanity's intent to retaliate against the Zyrax for their violation of the ceasefire and the lives they had taken. The words were simple but powerful, a clear testament to their unwavering commitment to justice. Humanity would not be cowed, nor would they stand idly by in the face of such barbarism. Within hours, the declaration of war was broadcast across human territories, a call to arms that united soldiers and civilians alike. This wasn't just a conflict. It was a crusade for justice, a promise to their fallen that their sacrifice would not be in vain. Humanity had been wronged, and now they would answer with the full weight of their resolve. The die was cast, the course set. The declaration of war set everything in motion. Across human space, commanders gathered to outline a precise, relentless strategy, one that would strike deep into Zyrax territory, shattering their defenses before they had a chance to regroup. The plan was ambitious, intended to demonstrate that humanity's response was swift, overwhelming, and absolute. The objective was clear. They wouldn't simply retaliate. They would decimate the Zyrax's ability to wage war. As the orders filtered down, key battalions were deployed across strategic fronts. The Vanguard Battalion, renowned for their close-quarters expertise and disciplined firepower, was assigned to spearhead assaults on high-value targets. The Iron Wolves, an elite armored unit, were tasked with capturing Zyrax outposts on hostile terrain, while the Black Stars, a special forces unit adept in covert operations, prepared for infiltration missions to dismantle the Zyrax's communication networks. Each unit had its role, a precise cog in the machine of war, and each soldier understood the gravity of the mission. As deployments began, the atmosphere in the barracks grew heavy, but with a shared, unspoken resolve. For many, this wasn't just a campaign. It was personal. Soldiers wrote final messages to loved ones, unsure if they would return, but resolute in their commitment to avenge their comrades and protect humanity. Some kept mementos, a worn photograph, a letter, symbols of what they fought for. The losses they had suffered had carved deep scars, but in those scars lay a fierce determination. In engineering bays across the fleet, technicians worked tirelessly to prepare for the offensive. Fighters and battleships were stripped down, reinforced, and outfitted with the latest weaponry: plasma cannons, electromagnetic railguns, upgraded armor plating. Teams of specialists worked around the clock to calibrate shields and propulsion systems, ensuring every ship was combat-ready. The hangars buzzed with activity, a symphony of welding sparks, machinery hums, and the shouted commands of officers overseeing the final preparations. For these crews, this was their contribution to the war. Every bolt tightened, every circuit tested, was a declaration of their commitment to the cause. Then came the broadcast from command, a final address sent out across all communication channels. It wasn't long, but it carried a weight that everyone understood. Admiral Riker stood before the assembled troops, his voice steady and clear, his expression unwavering. What we face is beyond a simple enemy. They have shown us who they are, and now it's time we show them who we are. We will strike fast, we will strike hard, and we will remind them that humanity does not bow, nor do we forgive such cruelty. Remember the faces of those we lost, and know that their memory fuels our resolve. Justice will be served. We do not stand alone. Across the fleet, the speech was met with a quiet determination. This wasn't a time for cheers or celebration. It was a time to steel themselves for the battles ahead. The assault began with precision that only a fully coordinated fleet could achieve. As humanity's armada surged into Zyrax-held space, their formation was relentless, a wall of ships advancing through the void. Tactical squadrons broke off to hit designated targets, each maneuver meticulously planned to overwhelm the Zyrax defenses at every point of contact. The attack wasn't just a response. It was a calculated demonstration of power, designed to leave the Zyrax no chance to react, much less recover. Leading the first wave, the Vanguard Battalion launched a fierce strike on Zyrax outposts situated on isolated moons. Dropships descended with pinpoint accuracy, piercing the Zyrax perimeter and unloading infantry who moved with lethal precision. Each soldier had memorized the blueprints of the enemy structures, hitting weak points and disabling key defenses within minutes. It was a sight to behold. Human soldiers moving in coordinated units, sweeping through Zyrax lines with trained efficiency, turning each encounter into a show of unmatched discipline and skill. High above, human fleet commanders issued rapid-fire orders as battleships unleashed volleys of plasma cannons and railgun fire, pounding the Zyrax defenses into submission. Fighter squadrons flanked enemy positions, targeting escape routes and supply lines to cut off any hope of reinforcement. The Zyrax, caught off guard by the sheer intensity of the assault, scrambled to mount a defense, but they were unprepared for the brutal precision of humanity's offensive. The combat was ruthless, raw, and chaotic. Human soldiers faced the Zyrax forces in brutal close-quarters battles, where each step forward was hard-fought, and every inch won had to be defended against waves of Zyrax reinforcements. Plasma blasts lit up the battlefield as soldiers dodged, counterattacked, and pushed through, driven by a purpose far beyond mere strategy. They were fighting for justice, for their fallen comrades, for the prisoners who had been executed. Each Zyrax soldier that fell was a reminder of the price humanity was exacting, an unrelenting testament to the unyielding resolve of the human forces. On the Zyrax side, commanders tried to organize a counterattack, ordering waves of reinforcements to intercept the human forces and retake captured outposts. But humanity's tactical prowess turned each Zyrax response into a futile effort. Zyrax soldiers found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned, their counteroffensives broken down by the precision of human tactics. Human snipers took out Zyrax officers, disorienting their ranks, while ground teams planted explosive charges, blowing apart Zyrax strongholds with merciless efficiency. As the Zyrax defenses crumbled, human forces pressed forward, advancing through the ruins of each defeated outpost. The carnage was immense, but it was also deeply personal. For every soldier on the ground, this battle was more than an objective. It was the fulfillment of a vow to never allow their comrades' lives to go unavenged. And with each victory, each Zyrax fortress that fell, the human forces felt a sense of grim satisfaction, a justice served, not just for their fallen comrades, but for humanity itself. The assault on the Zyrax stronghold had been the culmination of weeks of relentless fighting. Intelligence marked it as a high-value target, a fortress planet that served as a key supply and command center for the Zyrax forces. Capturing it was critical, but the Zyrax understood its importance too. They fortified every entrance, stationing wave after wave of troops, each line prepared to defend their stronghold to the last. As human forces descended, they encountered a resistance fiercer than anything they'd seen in the campaign so far. The air was thick with debris, shrapnel, and the relentless pulse of weapons fire. The battle stretched into hours, each side trading heavy losses. Human soldiers pushed through trenches, their advances coming at a high price. Even the Vanguard Battalion, known for its resilience, found itself pinned down, outflanked and outnumbered. Soldiers fought on, even as friends and comrades fell around them, some wounded beyond help. Medics worked in the midst of chaos, patching wounds under fire, while officers called in air support, determined to press forward despite mounting casualties. It was a bitter, hard-won struggle. When the human forces finally breached the stronghold's defenses, victory came with a heavy cost. Dozens of soldiers lay injured or fallen. Essential equipment had been destroyed in the skirmish. The stronghold, though captured, was littered with the evidence of sacrifice, a solemn reminder of the price humanity was paying. In the aftermath, the atmosphere was somber. The cost of this single victory weighed heavily on the survivors, and in the silent moments, soldiers reflected on the friends they had lost, the relentless toll of this war, and the mission that had brought them to this point. Among the ranks, there were hushed conversations, murmurs of doubt mixed with anger and sorrow. Some soldiers questioned the cost, wondering if any victory could ever balance the lives lost. Others, while grieving, spoke of honoring the fallen by seeing the mission through to the end. As they tended to their wounded and gathered their dead, a shared understanding grew among them. They would finish this fight for those who couldn't. Their sacrifice would not be in vain. In the hours that followed, command intercepted a Zyrax communication, a transmission sent in haste, as if intended to be hidden from prying ears. Analysts deciphered it, expecting routine orders or troop movements. Instead, what they found was a revelation. The transmission hinted at fractures within the Zyrax ranks, mentions of dissenting voices, hints of insubordination among certain factions, and the word rebellion appeared, a crack in the seemingly united Zyrax front. And woven into the message was mention of another species, one subjugated under Zyrax rule, one that had begun to show signs of resistance. This discovery breathed new life into the human forces. They weren't fighting alone, not entirely. Somewhere, within the Zyrax empire itself, forces of resistance were stirring, cracks forming in the seemingly indomitable Zyrax rule. The information spread through the ranks, reaching soldiers, pilots, engineers, a spark of hope that reignited their purpose. They knew now that the Zyrax were not invincible. They had weaknesses, and those weaknesses could be exploited. And perhaps, if these internal fractures grew, humanity might have allies among the Zyrax's own oppressed. As the human forces regrouped and prepared for the next stage, the resolve that had begun to falter was reborn. This was more than vengeance. It was the possibility of a better future, not just for humanity, but for any who suffered under Zyrax oppression. The losses were painful, but the mission was clear, and their purpose was reaffirmed. Humanity would continue its fight, not out of hatred, but out of the unshakable belief that they could end the Zyrax's reign of terror, and, in doing so, honor the sacrifices of all those who had fallen along the way. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Zyrax space, prepared for the final assault. Every ship, every battalion, every pilot and soldier knew the stakes. This was the last stronghold, the heart of Zyrax power, their homeworld. Intelligence confirmed that Zyrax forces were mobilizing, desperate to protect their seat of power. But humanity had come too far and sacrificed too much to turn back now. They launched forward with overwhelming force, their ships cutting through space in a coordinated formation, weapons primed to end the Zyrax's reign once and for all. As the human forces entered orbit, they unleashed a relentless bombardment, targeting Zyrax defenses with precise, calculated strikes. Ground troops descended to secure key locations, pushing through layers of Zyrax soldiers with a determination that defied exhaustion. The Zyrax fought fiercely, but the tides had turned. The strength of humanity's offense, their unbreakable unity, and the tactical brilliance honed over countless battles all converged in this final offensive. They knew their enemy, knew its weaknesses, and every strike, every move was designed to exploit them. The Zyrax forces began to crumble under the pressure. Communication lines failed. Strongholds fell one after another, and even the once confident leaders of the Zyrax felt the inevitability of defeat. In desperation, the remaining Zyrax commanders sent pleas for surrender. Their empire, built on fear and conquest, could no longer withstand the unwavering resolve of a species fighting not just to survive but to deliver justice. Humanity's leaders demanded full capitulation, with terms that ensured the Zyrax could never again threaten or oppress any species. With no other choice, the Zyrax leaders agreed, signing their surrender in the very halls where they had once planned humanity's downfall. As the dust settled, human soldiers moved through Zyrax territory, freeing prisoners and tending to those who had endured unspeakable hardships. The sight of liberated prisoners stirred deep emotions in every soldier and officer. These were the people they had fought for, the friends they had avenged. Memorials were held, honoring both the fallen and the newly freed. In the silence that followed the victory, humanity took time to remember every life that had been lost along the way. The cost had been high, but in that moment, they knew it had been worth it. Justice had been served. With the war finally over, humanity turned to the future. Across colonies, outposts, and worlds, people rallied to rebuild, to heal, and to ensure they would never forget what had transpired. Human leaders vowed to stand vigilant, to protect their people and uphold the unity forged through shared sacrifice. Soldiers returned home, bringing with them stories of bravery and sorrow, of triumph and resilience. A new generation would grow up learning the lessons of the war, their future shaped by the courage and unity of those who had fought for justice. And as humanity rebuilt, whispers of new alliances began. Liberated species, once oppressed by the Zyrax, reached out to their human liberators. Humanity's victory had changed the balance of power in the galaxy, opening doors to new alliances and challenges. The peace was hard-won, but in that moment, humanity knew they were ready for whatever lay ahead. They had faced down the darkness and emerged stronger, united and unbreakable.